I was 400 miles away in Edinburgh when my phone vibrated against the polished conference table. Motion detected. Living room. I opened the app expecting a delivery driver. Instead, I saw my parents, Minnie and Clyde, standing in the center of my sanctuary with a stranger holding a clipboard, a builder. They weren't watering my plants. They were holding a tape measure against the glass wall of my conservatory. My mother's voice came through the speaker, tiny and distorted, but unmistakable. Jasper needs this space for his content studio. Just knock the wall down. Cora won't make a scene. She'll just accept it. She was right about one thing. I wouldn't make a scene. I would make a war. I didn't scream. I didn't call the police. Not yet. That would be a temporary fix for a structural rot. I needed a total demolition. I closed the security app and opened my travel portal. I booked the next flight out of Edinburgh Airport one way. I wasn't going back to visit family. I was going back to liquidate a failed investment. I knew exactly when to strike. Jasper wasn't known for his discretion. For weeks, he had been posting about a major reveal for his followers this Saturday at 2 in the afternoon, a grand opening of his new content house. He wanted an audience. He wanted to show the world his success. I decided right then that I would give him exactly what he wanted. I would be his surprise guest. The flight to Bristol took just over an hour. I didn't spend a single minute of it crying or mourning the relationship I thought I had with my parents. I spent it working. I bought the Wi-Fi package and opened my laptop. It was time to organize the archives. I created a new folder on my desktop and named it simply The Ledger. I started pulling files. Bank statements from 5 years ago, bank transfer histories, signed agreements for business loans that were never repaid. I dragged and dropped every single transaction into the folder. There was the $3,000 for his podcast equipment that gathered dust in a garage. The $5,000 for the drop shipping business that never shipped a single product. The $8,000 for the car deposit because he needed reliable transport to get to job interviews he never attended. I looked at the total sum on the spreadsheet, $90,000. That wasn't brotherly support. That was embezzlement. My parents hadn't just enabled him. They had facilitated the theft of my future to fund his delusions. And now they were literally measuring my walls for destruction. I stared at the clouds shifting outside the window. For years, I had treated my family like a charity case, convinced that my financial stability was a resource I owed them. I thought if I gave enough, they would finally see me as valuable. But looking at the cold, hard numbers on my screen, I realized the truth. I wasn't a valued family member. I was just an asset they were ready to strip for parts. I closed the spreadsheet and picked up my phone. There was one person who might still be on my side, Eula, Jasper's fiancée. She had called me 3 times yesterday, voicemails breathless and anxious, trying to warn me about something. But I had been too busy with the conference to listen. Now I understood why she sounded so desperate. I typed a text message. I saw the security feed. I know what they are doing. I am landing in 2 hours. Do not tell them I am coming. Meet me at the airport. 3 dots appeared instantly, then a reply. Thank God. I have documents you need to see. It is worse than you think. I turned off my phone and leaned back against the headrest. The anger that had been burning in my chest cooled into something solid and heavy, like a stone. I wasn't afraid of the confrontation anymore. I was looking forward to it. They wanted to break down my walls. Fine. But they forgot that I was the one who built the foundation, and I knew exactly where to place the charges to bring the whole thing down. I sat in the hire car 3 streets away from my own driveway, watching the digital clock on the dashboard tick toward 2 up. My laptop was open on the passenger seat, the screen glowing with the spreadsheet I had named The Ledger. It was a complete autopsy of my relationship with my family, quantified in cold, hard rows and columns. I scrolled through the history. 5 years, $90,000. It was staggering when I looked at it all at once. There was the $15,000 for Jasper's lifestyle brand launch party, an event that consisted of him buying tables at a club for people who didn't know his name. There was the $6,000 for his emergency rent when he claimed his flatmate stole his money. I found out later the flatmate had moved out 3 months prior. There were endless transfers of $400, $800, $500, bleeding me dry slowly, quietly. I closed my eyes and pictured my house, specifically the conservatory I had converted into a hydroponic garden. It was my sanctuary. I had spent months researching nutrient solutions and lighting cycles. It was the only place in the world where I felt completely at peace, surrounded by the quiet hum of water pumps and the clean scent of basil and mint. It was a living system that required patience, care, and respect, everything my family lacked, and they were going to destroy it with a sledgehammer. To them, my sanctuary was just wasted square footage. They wanted to replace my living, breathing garden with ring lights, green screens, and a neon sign that said, Jasper's World. They wanted to turn my temple of silence into a factory of noise. For years, people had asked me why I did it. Why did I keep writing the checks? Why did I keep answering the phone? Looking at the numbers, now I finally understood the mechanism behind my own behavior. It wasn't generosity. It wasn't even love. Not really. It was a trauma response. I had been forging the links of an invisible chain my entire life. Growing up, I learned that my parents' affection was a volatile currency. If I wasn't useful, I was invisible. If I wasn't solving a problem, I was creating one. So I learned to fawn. I learned to anticipate their needs and pay for their approval before they even asked. I had convinced myself that if I just paid enough, if I was just successful enough, I could buy my way into being a valued member of this family. The $90,000 wasn't a loan. It was a survivor's tax. I had been paying protection money to the people who were supposed to protect me. I thought the money was a bridge connecting us, but it was actually a wall. As long as I kept paying, they didn't have to see me as a person. They only had to see me as a resource. But the bank was closed. The subscription had expired. I looked at the security app on my phone one last time. I could see them moving inside my house. They were laughing. My mother was pointing at my grandmother's vintage armchair, instructing Jasper to drag it out to the wet lawn to make room for his equipment. They looked so comfortable in their theft. They thought they owned me because I had spent a lifetime letting them rent me. I shut the laptop with a snap. I wasn't just going to evict them from my house. I was going to evict the scared little girl inside me who thought she had to pay for the privilege of existing. I put the car in gear. It was time to go home. Saturday, 2 hour. I parked my hire car at the end of the road and watched. The invasion was already underway. My security app had been pinging me for the last hour, but seeing it in person was different. It wasn't just pixels on a screen anymore. It was a physical violation. My driveway was full. Jasper's leased Audi was parked sideways, taking up 2 spots. My parents' SUV was on the lawn, the tires sinking into the soft earth I had spent weekends aerating. The front door was wide open. I could see people moving inside, not just my family, but strangers. Jasper's crew, kids with cameras and ring lights, treating my home like a public park. I walked toward the house. The sound of bass-heavy music thumped from inside, rattling the windows. My grandmother's vintage armchair, the one I had spent a fortune restoring, was sitting on the front lawn. It had been dragged out to make room, abandoned on the wet grass like rubbish. A half-empty can of Red Bull was balanced on its velvet armrest. I stepped onto the porch. My mother, Minnie, was standing in the foyer, directing 2 of Jasper's friends who were carrying a large green screen. She looked radiant, energized, the way she always looked when she was catering to Jasper's whims. "Careful with that," she was saying. "We need the lighting to be perfect for the stream." She turned and saw me. For a second, she froze. Then her expression shifted from shock to annoyance. "Cora, what are you doing here? I thought you were in Edinburgh until Tuesday." "I came back early," I said, my voice flat. "I wanted to see the renovations." "Oh, don't start," she snapped, waving a hand dismissively. "We're just rearranging a few things for Jasper. He has a huge event today. You should be happy for him. He's finally making it." "Making it?" I repeated, "by knocking down my walls." "It's just a wall, Cora. And those plants. Honestly, it was a waste of space. Jasper needs room to create. You need to loosen up anyway. You're always so uptight. I walked past her into the living room. It was unrecognizable. My furniture was gone, replaced by beanbag chairs and tripods. And there in the center of the room, standing in front of a ring light the size of a tractor tire, was Jasper. He was holding his phone up, talking to an invisible audience, his voice pitched high and manic. "All right, what's happening, everyone? Welcome to the Gaff. We are live from the new HQ. This is where the magic happens. We got the crypto charts, we got the gaming setup, we got..." He stopped when he saw me standing in the frame. His smile faltered for a fraction of a second before he tried to recover. "Yo, look who it is! Special guest appearance. My sister Cora just flew in to celebrate the launch. Say hi to the stream, Cora." He tried to put his arm around me to pull me into his delusion. I stepped back. The camera was still rolling. The comments were scrolling by on his phone screen. Thousands of people watching. Perfect. "I'm not here to celebrate," I said, looking directly into the lens of his phone. "I'm here to evict you." Jasper laughed, a nervous, jagged sound. Classic Cora, always joking. Guys, she's a right laugh. "I'm not joking," I said, my voice cutting through his performance. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder. "This is a cease and desist, and this," I held up the thick stack of papers, "is the ledger." "Cora, stop!" My father, Clyde, appeared from the kitchen, looking flushed and angry. "You're embarrassing him. Put that away." "No," I said. I turned back to the camera. "For anyone watching, my name is Cora. I own this house. Jasper doesn't live here. He lives in our parents' spare room. And the success he's bragging about? It was funded by $90,000 he stole from me over the last 5 years." The room went silent. The music stopped. Jasper looked at the phone, then at me, his face draining of color. "Turn it off," he hissed. "Turn the stream off." "Why?" I asked. "Don't you want your fans to see the real you? The one who borrows money for rent and spends it on bottle service? The one who needs his mummy to help him break into his sister's house?" I opened the folder and pulled out the first bank statement. August 12th, $3,000 for podcast equipment. Never recorded a single episode. September 15th, $5,000 for a business license. The business doesn't exist. January 4th, $8,000 for a car deposit. Where's the car, Jasper? "That's enough." My mother grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "You are ruining his big moment. How can you be so selfish?" I looked at her hand on my arm, then up at her face. "Selfish? You're measuring my house for demolition while I'm out of town, and I'm the selfish one?" "We were going to tell you," she cried. "We just wanted it to be a surprise." "A surprise?" I said. "Like the time you surprised me by giving him my university fund? Or the time you surprised me by co-signing his loans with my credit?" Jasper lunged for the phone, trying to end the stream, but he fumbled it. It clattered to the floor, screen up, still broadcasting. The comments were going nuclear. Is this real? Did he really steal from his sister? Scammer. Fake. I looked down at the phone, then back at my brother. He wasn't a tycoon. He wasn't an influencer. He was a child in a man's body, terrified because the lights had finally been turned on. "Get out," I said. "All of you, get out of my house." "You can't do this," my father sputtered. "We're family." "Not anymore," I said. "Now you're just trespassers." I didn't back down. I held my ground as my father sputtered, his face turning a mottled red. But before he could launch into another defense of his golden boy, the front door opened again. Eula walked in. Jasper's head snapped up. "Babe, what are you doing here? Tell them to leave. Tell them they're ruining everything." Eula didn't look at him. She looked at me, gave a small, grim nod, and then walked into the center of the room. She was holding a manila envelope. She looked calm, but her knuckles were white where she gripped the paper. "I'm not here to help you, Jasper," she said, her voice shaking slightly but gaining strength with every word. "I'm here to end this." "End what?" Jasper laughed nervously, glancing at the phone on the floor, realizing the stream was still live to thousands of people. "Babe, come on, not now." Yes, now, Eula said. She opened the envelope and pulled out a document. It was thick, official looking. Do you recognize this? Jasper squinted at it, and then his eyes went wide. Panic, real and raw, flashed across his face. Where did you get that? From the glove box of your new car, Eula said. The one you told me you bought with your crypto gains. The one you said was paid off in full. She held the document up to the camera on the floor, then turned it toward my parents. It's a lease agreement for a $55,000 luxury SUV, but look at the signature at the bottom. My father squinted at the paper. That says Cora. Exactly, Eula said. He didn't buy the car, he leased it, and he forged Cora's signature as the co-signer because his credit score is in the bin. I felt the air leave my lungs. I snatched the paper from her hand. There it was, my name scrolled in a handwriting that was trying too hard to look like mine, but had the telltale jagged loops of Jasper's script. He had committed identity theft against his own sister. You forged my signature, I asked, my voice barely a whisper. You stole my identity. It was just a cosign, Jasper yelled, desperate now. I was going to make the payments. I just needed a little boost to get approved. The car is part of the brand, Cora. You have to spend money to make money. You committed a felony, I said. That's not spending money, that's fraud. But Eula wasn't done. She reached back into the envelope. There's more, she said. And this time she looked at my parents with pity. Cora, when you texted me about the security feed, I did some digging. I ran a credit check on everyone in this house. She pulled out 2 more sheets of paper. Minnie, Clyde, do you know you have 3 credit cards maxed out in your names that were opened 6 months ago? My mother blinked, confused. What? No, we don't. We only have the 1 card for emergencies. Not anymore, Eula said. Jasper opened them. He used your national insurance numbers. He's racked up $30,000 in debt in your names to fund his lifestyle. He hasn't made a single payment. You're in default. Your credit is ruined. The silence in the room was absolute. My father's phone pinged. He pulled it out, frowning. It was a credit monitoring alert. He stared at the screen, scrolling, his face losing all color. He looked up at Jasper, then at the papers in Eula's hand, and finally, he understood. You stole from us, my father whispered. After everything we gave you, after we remortgaged the house for your legal fees last time, you stole our identities. Jasper was backing away now, shaking his head. I was going to pay it back once the crypto course took off. I was going to pay it all back with interest. You guys just don't have any vision. Vision, I said. You bankrupt your own parents. You stole my identity. You were about to destroy my home. That's not vision, Jasper. That's predation. I looked at my parents. They were standing there, broken. The son they had protected, the son they had chosen over me time and time again, had eaten them alive, and they hadn't even felt the teeth until it was too late. Get out, I said again. All of you, now. My mother looked at me, tears streaming down her face. Cora, please, we didn't know. You didn't want to know, I said. You were so busy building him up that you didn't notice he was tearing you down. And you were so busy tearing me down that you didn't notice I was the only one holding you up. I pointed to the door. Leave before I call the police and add trespassing to the list of charges. They left, my father stumbling like an old man, my mother sobbing, Jasper running out to his leased car that was about to be repossessed. Eula stayed behind for a moment. I'm sorry, she said. I should have told you sooner. You told me when it mattered, I said. Thank you. She nodded and walked out, closing the door on the wreckage of my family. I stood in the silence of my home, the ring light still glowing, the green screen still up, but the noise was gone. The parasites were gone. I picked up Jasper's phone from the floor. The stream had ended when the battery died, but the comments were forever, and so was the truth. I walked to my conservatory wall. It was still standing. They hadn't touched it yet. I pressed my hand against the glass, feeling the cool surface. My sanctuary was safe. My ledger was closed, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't just the survivor. I was the victor. The police arrived 12 minutes later. I had called them myself, stating clearly that I had trespassers on my property who were refusing to leave. 2 officers walked up the driveway, their expressions professional and unreadable. I met them on the porch, handing over a USB drive containing the security footage, the live stream recording, and the digital copies of the forged lease and the credit reports. "He's inside," I said, pointing to Jasper, who was sitting on the floor with his head in his hands. Jasper. He committed identity theft against me and our parents. He also trespassed and destroyed property. The officers went inside. I watched from the doorway as they spoke to Jasper. He tried to argue at first, his voice rising in that familiar whine, claiming it was all a misunderstanding, a family dispute. But then Eula handed them the physical copy of the forged lease. The officer looked at it, looked at Jasper, and then pulled out his handcuffs. "Jasper, stand up, put your hands behind your back." My mother screamed. It was a raw, animal sound that echoed through the house. "No, you can't take him. He's just a boy. He didn't mean it." She rushed forward, grabbing the officer's arm. He gently but firmly pushed her back. "Ma'am, step back. Your son is under arrest for fraud and identity theft." "Cora, stop them!" she shrieked, turning on me. Her face was twisted, ugly with desperation. "Tell them it was a mistake. Tell them you gave him permission. He's your brother." I analyzed her expression for a trace of maternal instinct, but all I found was the panic of an accessory losing her shield. She was watching her son get handcuffed for stealing her identity, for ruining her credit, for nearly destroying her life. And she was still trying to save him. She was still trying to sacrifice me to do it. "I didn't give him permission," I said to the officer. "Press charges for everything." "You monster!" my father yelled. "You're ruining this family. You're sending your brother to prison." "No," I said, my voice calm, almost bored. "He sent himself to prison when he signed my name, and you helped him pack his bags when you taught him he could take whatever he wanted." They took Jasper away. He was crying now, begging, looking at me with wide, terrified eyes. I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no pity, just the cold, clean feeling of a debt being settled. My parents stayed behind, huddled together in the living room amidst the wreckage of their son's failed empire. They looked small, defeated, and then, inevitably, they turned their anger on me. "We will lose the house," my father said, his voice trembling, "because of those credit cards. We can't pay them. We'll be homeless, and it's your fault." "My fault?" I asked. "Did I open the cards? Did I spend the money?" "You called the police," he shouted. "We could have fixed this. We could have worked something out. Now he has a record. Now we have nothing." I looked at them, and suddenly I understood. It wasn't just denial. It was survival. If they admitted Jasper was a monster, they had to admit they had raised one. If they admitted he stole from them, they had to admit their love was a weakness he exploited. It was easier to blame me. It was easier to make me the villain than to look in the mirror and see the fools they had become. "I'm issuing you a formal trespass notice," I said. "If you come back here, you'll be arrested too. Get out." "You can't do that," my mother whispered. "We're your parents." "You were my parents," I said. "Now you're just the people who broke into my house." I walked to the front door and held it open. They stared at me for a long moment, waiting for me to crack, waiting for the daughter who always fixed things to come back. But she was gone. I had evicted her, too. They walked out. I watched them go, then I closed the door. The click echoed in the silent house like a gunshot. It was over. 3 months later. The glass wall is still standing. The builder's measuring tape is a distant memory, replaced by the steady, rhythmic drip of the nutrient feeds. My hydroponic garden isn't just surviving, it's thriving. The basil has grown so thick it brushes against the glass, and the scent of mint and lemon balm fills the air. Clean, sharp, and entirely mine. It was raining in Bristol, a gray sheet of water against the windows that made the warmth inside feel like a luxury. I poured 3 cups of tea using the peppermint leaves I had harvested that morning. I wasn't alone. Aunt Estelle was sitting in the armchair, my grandmother's chair, which I had rescued from the lawn and professionally cleaned. Next to her was Eula. She wasn't wearing her engagement ring anymore. "I heard from my sister yesterday," Aunt Estelle said, blowing softly on her tea. She didn't look at me. She looked out at the rain. "The bank finalized the foreclosure on Tuesday. They're moving into a 2-bedroom flat near the airport. It's small." "Are they okay?" Eula asked, though her voice was guarded. "They're alive," Estelle said. "They're still paying for Jasper's lawyer, and they're still telling anyone who will listen that Cora stole their retirement." I took a sip of tea. The liquid was hot, grounding. I waited for the guilt to come. I waited for that familiar, suffocating weight in my chest that told me I was a bad daughter, that I should fix this, that I should write one more check to save them from the consequences of their own idolatry. But the guilt didn't come. There was only the taste of peppermint and the sound of the rain. "Let them talk," I said. "They need a villain. If blaming me helps them sleep at night in the bed they made, they can have that. It's the last thing I'll ever give them." I walked over to my tomato vines. There was a yellowing leaf near the base of a healthy stem. It was draining energy from the fruit, clinging to the stalk even though it was already dead. I took my shears and snipped it off with a clean, precise cut. For 32 years, I thought family was a permanent condition. I thought shared DNA was a suicide pact, that you had to drown together if one person refused to swim. But as the dead leaf fell into my hand, I finally understood the truth. Family isn't a right. It's a title that must be earned every single day. Biology makes you relatives. Respect makes you family. I had spent a lifetime watering a dead plant, hoping it would bloom, not realizing that the rot was spreading to the roots. Cutting them off wasn't an act of cruelty. It was an act of survival. I didn't lose a family. I pruned the decay so that I could finally grow. "I changed my number this morning," I told them, dropping the dead leaf into the compost bin. "They can't reach me anymore." Eula smiled, a genuine, tired smile. "Good. Peace suits you, Cora." "It does," I said. I looked around my home. There were no ring lights. There were no screamers. There was just the quiet hum of the water pumps, the smell of life, and the people who actually saw me. I wasn't the invisible bank anymore. I was the gardener, and my garden was finally free of weeds.